Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Welcome back to another episode of Hard Out,
you.
my favorite movie, with Karl Slominski and Jenna Wright as our guests. We're here to talk about, as an icebreaker, of course, always, we'll get into whatever, but Jenna's favorite movie we've already covered with Michael Myers before is Halloween, but Karl brought to the table Brazil by the one and only Terry Gilliam.
Two flicks that have so much in common.
All right.
Do you guys, first off, maybe we should let people know who you are. Jenna, writer, filmmaker. Do you podcast still? You had some kind of thing you were doing for a while, right? You were drinking wine, I remember back in the day, and reviewing movies or something.
Yeah, there was there was one thing I did where I would talk about movies and pretend to drink.
You're pretty good. It's kind of convincing at times. I thought you were getting hammered.
And then Karl and I had a podcast called Tricky Animals that we did for 10 or 11 episodes, and then we just were like, I don't think we have anything else to talk about. I'm sick of you.
Oh yeah, we just got to the point where like everybody's an expert now, so they don't need to hear us ramble.
Yeah.
You didn't have guests or anything. We found the same. That's why.
Yeah, we get sick of each other pretty fast.
We had a couple, but it just got to a place where we got busy with other stuff, and then everything shut down, and then we got depressed, and so just kind of it was hard.
What's
to
the point?
Yeah.
And there's so many podcasts in the world. That's how we feel about this one, but we still just keep doing it. Why the fuck not? It's like, who cares? What's the point? To our 4 patrons out there, appreciate it. Like all episodes, if you guys decide to stick around after, there's an overtime session after the buzzer. People have stuck around from 3 minutes to 3 hours, so hang as long as you want. Talk about whatever. And people can see that if they go through our Patreon. It's only $1, so you get access to all those.
Excellent.
You got anything to plug up front? Because this fucking buzzer will come up harsh. So we kind of reverse plug shit. Absolutely. I know you got Evermore Falls out there, but it's already funded, right? Do you want to talk about that a bit?
I need all the money that's out there.
Right.
Back the brakes truck up. I don't care. It may be funded.
All of it.
So Evermore Falls, you want to tell us about it?
It is a all ages graphic novel about kids who find a mystical, magical hidden land where monsters are real, and they are the keepers of an ancient evil that may threaten life as we know it.
So the kiddos have to save the world.
Yeah, kiddos have to save the world. That's actually the tagline. She just came up with it.
Perfect. You guys
love your hard work, man. It's great. Amazing.
Thanks, guys.
I mean, maybe I'll post some up in here if you don't mind. If you want to give me some samples to post.
Sure.
Your art is inspired to me. It's so idiosyncratic, and like when you see it, you know it's yours, and that's
unique. Yeah,
the most special thing you could have, the most special trait as an artist, in my opinion. It's like when we were growing up, Todd McFarlane was so unmistakably Todd McFarlane compared to all the guys who came before and then even after. But your shit is even more inventive and just unique. It's amazing. Love it. Truly.
Thanks, man. I'm going to be blushing over here. Plus, you used my favorite word, idiosyncratic, and compared me to the Todd father.
Hey, man, I think it's all deserved praise. No hyperbole on my end. At least that's how I feel. Again, people can see for themselves. I'll post some samples up here, but we're dying to work with you. We got a thing we're trying to work with you on, but we're waiting for the fucking money, man, as usual. To take
always
eons. Yeah. So hopefully that comes together, because if not, I'm like, fuck it. I mean, full disclosure, Chris and I are ready to just drop all this Hollywood shit. We can get into that as well, because I'm sure you got some thoughts on the industry and the creative life, trying to navigate this fucking industry where commerce collides with art.
I've got some thoughts.
Yeah.
All right. Let them rip. Fuck Brazil and Halloween.
Yeah, fuck the movie. I haven't seen it, right?
Let me give you that real scoop.
Right. Well, the funny thing is, a movie like Brazil would never get made now, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
I practically almost didn't.
Right. Even then.
Right.
And we all know Terry Gilliam's had his struggles with the man who, what was it, Don Quixote, the man who killed Don Quixote? Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Lost in La Mancha, the documentary. It's amazing.
Right. Amazing.
And they ended up making the man who killed Don Quixote. I didn't even know that. I just looking him up just now, because I love Lost in La Mancha, and how ironic it is, inappropriate it is that it is like a Don Quixote chasing windmills. You know, it's almost like a metaphor for the project. But now that and it's with Adam Driver instead of Johnny Depp, or I think it was going to be Ewan McGregor at some point, and Yeah, so have to watch that at some point.
Did Gilliam direct it?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh shit! I gotta watch it.
I know. I had no idea.
Well, all right. Well, tell us about your experience with Brazil. The first time you saw it, why you love it so much all these years later. And Jenna, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too. I'm curious to see if you love it nearly as much as Hammer.
I've never seen it.
Oh shit! Well, all right.
I'm gonna learn everything I can from you guys.
Before I let him launch in, though, let me say, today's my birthday. My wife got me this amazing Indian food last night, but I don't know what the hell was in it because I tried to watch the film again last night because I hadn't seen it in 25 years or some shit probably. And dude, I got hit with the worst. I was like a fire hose on each end of me.
That's a hell of a condition to be in watching Brazil too, man.
Right.
It must have
It
made
was
it
like
extra
3 hours
surreal.
of just fucking hydro excavation, and I feel like I'm hungover. So hair of the dog, even though I'm not.
Nice.
Particularly that scene with the shit filling up the suits, you know.
Yes. That hit home.
Well,
You were living that.
So if I puke in the middle of this or anything, that'll just be my Artie Lang moment for the show. Run with it. So go ahead. The floor is yours. Let's hear about Brazil.
Shit. Brazil. I think I found it at the right time in my life. I was just starting art school, which is the best time to start watching arty bullshit movies like Brazil. I didn't come to it from like the Monty Python of it all. I'm not a huge Monty Python guy. Sure. But Brazil, I think my roommate had it. And I was like, what is this? And he was like, oh, son, let me learn you something. And he threw it on, and it's not a movie that exists in a real world, and yet it's completely about the struggle of the real world, and it doesn't look like
bureaucracy and
like it's a thing that doesn't have an actual enemy. It has paperwork. It doesn't have a very assertive protagonist. He's very passive. He daydreams about being a superhero essentially, and like
in some inspired shit, like amazing scenes, especially for that era.
Yeah, it's one of those things where every time I watch it, I just go, this is more and more relevant than probably when it was even released, because I mean, everything is so closely monitored. Everybody is on some form of eggshells, and we're also very dismissive of like the daily like violence of it all. Like there are bombings straight up throughout this movie.
Right. And how nonchalant people are. They just keep eating at the restaurant and shit. Yeah.
I had a
especially the rich.
When I was in New York City a few years back, I remember being in, I think it was Penn Station, and you'd hear like every 5 minutes, if you see something, say something, and blah, blah, just like, holy shit, I'm in the middle of Brazil right now. Because 10 years ago, it wasn't like that, but here we are. And that's normal. But it's just one of those movies that just has so much to look at too. Like the world building it just knocks it out of the park, from like the Kafka-esque billboards that have been.
Yeah, I was going to mention Kafka. The whole, even like the trial, if you know the trial, this reminded me of that a lot, with the guy didn't even know what he was charged for through the whole book, and he's still going through the court system and just out of his control. Yeah.
I love that it's basically death by 1,000 paper cuts, almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And when I was reading up on it a while back, the working title of the movie was 1984 and a half, and I always thought that was such
that's
a
beautiful
title.
Yeah, I thought that too. 84. Yep.
But it's funny,
all the same notes.
The song Brazil, which the film is named after, is like a runner for that movie, and it's Gilliam said himself that it's basically a metaphor for that need to escape the monotony, and that was like vacation background music that would get piped into airports, and that's exactly what that movie is.
Well, yeah, while you're sitting on hold, what do you hear? That music, you're in purgatory. There's this promise of hope or whatever coming through your ears.
But to this day, I think it's kind of had an impact on everything I've done, because it is so scathingly sarcastic and bitter about the system, but also being so tepid and a little meek-mannered about it. It's just like, well, I can't do much about it unless I'm in dreams.
It's how we all acquiesce, because it's just like, what am I going to do against the system, you know?
Exactly. But yeah, it's fucking great, and it's all about just one accident having
that was great too. That's that moment where he squashes the bug and it falls on the typewriter and changes a letter and sends someone else to you know,
I've lost my mind.
Arrested as a terrorist.
How the smallest thing in that movie have the biggest impact, and the story is inconsequential because of that, but also leads to everything that happens.
Yeah, it's very Dirk Gently.
Yeah,
in that regard, the holistic aspect. So what's that?
Was that?
I was just saying, is it because I haven't seen it, but I've seen like the casing, and I think he's put it on the background while we've done stuff. And like, is it extravagant and beautiful? Because I feel like your art is also very kind of very detailed and very trying to like force this beautiful thing into the world, even though it's idiosyncratic and all of that.
One of the design elements I really like is
you're a glitter party.
I am a glitter party. This is not a glitter party. This is the grayest movie you'll ever see.
Okay.
One of the things I really liked about it is like the design aspect is cutting the corners so extreme that they have tiny computer screens but giant magnifying glasses too.
Oh my God.
Right.
That would save
the ducts,
so
all the ducts everywhere, just like Byzantine.
Well, it's funny because as I watched it, I thought, you know, of course, most people would call this an absurdist take or whatever, right? But I'm like, as I'm watching it, I'm like, it's no more absurd than our reality is. Our reality is truly absurd. You know, as mundane as it seems, it's absurd. Any of it that we even exist, have technology, period, whatever, considering what creatures we are. But secondly, the bureaucracy of it all, the fact that, I mean, life does feel like this. It's hyperbolic in the film, but I mean, just I had to register a car again the other day. I'm like, wait, why do I have to re-register my car every year and like remind you? I got to pay you to remind you that I own this car and shit. Like, it's just that's kind of how the film operates. You know, it's the world we live in.
But
or like how you have to move your car across the street every other night.
Yeah.
That kind of shit.
That is every day for us. I cannot stand it.
And if it's not in the designated hour, here you're fined.
Yeah.
Right. It's insane. And you don't want to be, I mean, I don't know what you guys are politically, but some anarchist, of course, like you want there to be some system in place,
right?
But man, is it overdoing it, you know, as far as
system,
just the invasiveness into your life. Like it'd be so nice if it was kind of a passive thing that you didn't feel the impression of all the time, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's, we were just talking about, you get fined for something if you misbehave or whatever. But if you're rich, like with parking tickets, so what, you know, but if you're poor and you're barely making rent, then it's a big deal. Same penalty, but it's really not, you know, depending on your circumstances.
Yeah. A parking ticket can ruin your life. It can snowball into your car being taken and shit because you don't pay them. And it's crazy.
It's also like think about bank overdraft fees. Like you already have
been there.
And they're going to charge you more money because you don't have money.
Louis C.K. has a great bit on that. Insufficient funds. Yeah, I agree. I have insufficient funds. They're like, wait, so you don't have enough money, so you're going to take more money. Okay.
Or your credit score is not high enough, so you have to pay more than you would if your credit score were good. Well, my credit score is not good because I don't have the money. Like,
right. As if they can't program the shit to just deny the transaction and not let you overdraft. Like, just get declined.
Yeah, it's opportunistic.
Point of purchase, you know?
They want to penalize you so you don't keep doing it.
Dude, they make billions off of fucking overdraft fees alone, probably. Anyway, fucking.
And the consumerism. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say back to what Jenna was saying about Karl's art being informed by this. I do think what I love about Terry Gilliam, and Fisher King might be my all-time favorite movie. So huge fan of fucking Terry Gilliam. I feel like what I love about his work is what I love about your art. I wouldn't say if I look at your art, I'm like, Terry Gilliam, I think it immediately, but I think it shares some kind of
sensibilities.
Yeah, exactly. There's something there that's just simpatico, you know?
I'll take that. I mean, that's high praise. That and the Todd McFarlane remark, it doesn't help.
Bro, I'm not telling. We talk about your shit way more than you think. Like, dude, we gotta get Karl. We gotta get Karl. Even if this thing crumbles somehow, I want to find a way to get you to do something with a Revenger because we still own the rights to that. You know.
Oh, nice.
So it's like maybe we can just do a first issue, see how many pages it would be, find a way to wrangle the money for your fee because you definitely deserve to get paid for the shit you do. Obviously.
Damn Skippy.
That's why I first started talking to Karl. I was like, I saw his, like, I started following him on Twitter because I liked his art. And I was just like, I'm going to figure out a way to force him to create something with me because I like his art so much.
Yeah.
And then you did. And now we're doing that.
That's right. Making comics.
Just don't create a baby. You'll be all right.
No, thank you.
On Father's Day, I said, "Oh, tomorrow's Father's Day, I guess."
Happy not a Father's Day.
Happy enjoyed the fact that you have a cat.
Yeah, at least between the four of us, we only have one kid. It's mine, but that's a good ratio as far as overpopulation goes. I could talk all day about Terry Gilliam movies in general.
Time Bandits.
Time Bandits for us as kids
excellent.
in the 80s with that shit on rotation and free HBO. We'd get promotional once in a while, you know, living in the hood. That shit was amazing. Like we might have gotten into Dungeons and Dragons type shit as kids in the 80s through that. Maybe. I don't know. I don't remember the timeline, but
contributed.
Sure. Yeah. I was always partial to 12 Monkeys as well.
12 Monkeys is amazing.
But that's also like the movie that broke him through to the mainstream.
Yeah, Brad Pitt helped.
Bruce Willis.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people see that and they're like, oh yeah, Terry Gilliam, the same guy that did Baron Munchausen?
Exactly. Tideland.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I need to watch that again. I was not in the right space. We tried
that. Was later
once.
too, right?
Yeah, it was way later.
Yeah, I actually really liked Tideland because it's seeing what he can do with limitations.
Yeah, that's
he's so notorious for like getting a nugget of an idea and letting it blow up to, you know, Brazil. But that is an incredible little flick just for that reason. And his frustration is all over the screen of that one too, because he's just like, I can't have any more fucking money. What?
I think we were just in a headspace where we were writing like these shit talking redneck bank robbers in this script all the time, and then we put it on, and it's just like this whispering little girl shit or something. We were just like not in the place to watch it at the time, and I remember just thinking there was some element that wasn't hitting for me, but I definitely am going to revisit it. Thanks to this podcast, probably, but Terry Gilliam deserves me to watch it in full. You know, before I just.
I mean, as Jay said, one of our favorite films. I mean, like top 3, possibly, maybe favorite, even if you really put a gun to our heads, is Fisher King. So,
and the Lost in La Mancha documentary. I mean, that shit.
It's amazing.
Speaks to me as a filmmaker. Yeah, anyone who's tried to make a film can relate to that. Just the F-16s or whatever flying through your shot and shit. Just that kind of bullshit that making a film is, trying to herd cats, and you know, so frustrating.
I watched, every time I watch that, I feel a little bit more inspired though to just take things into my own hands.
Yeah.
Still relying on all the moving pieces in the puzzle, and I'm just like, man, I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to have like I gotta walk down the hallway alone moment. I want to just get my shit made.
This is why we're just trying to scale back to prose, probably even podcast audio plays.
It's just your imagination and nothing else, pretty much. You know, you're forcing the reader to, you know, picture it in their heads, to be the director. You know, cast it, everything.
And we can't draw like you. We're pretty good artists,
right?
But if I can't do something amazing, I don't want to do it. You know,
it's so time consuming.
That's the thing.
Although prose is too.
So jealous of what he can do because he can draw, he can write, he can letter, he can color. So one man band, you can just take the vision you have in your head and make it and put it out into the world. Whereas I can't do that. Like I can't light and direct and do all the things that I have to do for a movie all by myself. You can just sit down at a desk a month later, put something out into the world. And I'm so jealous.
You're welcome.
I mean, that is what we say always to filmmakers too, and kind of what we did with Cactus Jack.
Yeah. We've
said in a lot of Q&As, like the first day we had a full crew and everything, and after 10 hours of that, we're like, no, fuck all this.
Prior to that, in my mind, I always wanted to just keep it stripped down as much as possible.
Well, to the point where we reconfigured the whole story even.
Yeah, we redesigned the story to make it a documentary style to make that easier.
Found footage or whatever, so we can just create it ourselves and did everything like, oh, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes to light it. Fuck it. Who cares? But I'm going to make it an amateur documentary who's making the shit. So I give myself that out.
Yeah.
That it can look like shit. You know what I mean? So
just shooting it in the environment. Yeah.
I think it's a great way for people to operate. And then you do learn as you do the things, you know, even just you're lighting it on the fly, you're learning. So it's kind of autodidacticism or whatever going on there. But the suffering the fools, man, the worst shit for us in Hollywood, it's not even the rejection and all that. I could give a fuck. I can handle all that.
Yeah.
People don't like our shit. We say like it or don't all the time, but it's just the notes and the thoughts and the opinions and the waiting and the asking permission. Fuck all that. It's disgusting.
It's rough.
I'm not a fan. I got a lot of that with Evermore Falls because I had my agent took it out to pretty much every imprint that had like a YA kids readers graphic novel imprint. All those son of a guns came back with like, this looks amazing, but it's too good for kids, or
it's too detailed.
It looks too much like a comic book.
It's so insulting.
So stupid. Kids could get lost in those details, man. I would eat that shit up when I was a kid.
So would I. I mean,
that's how kids become grown.
Yeah, they're dumbing down the kids by doing this.
Yeah. It was frustrating, man, because I'd try to tell them, like, you know that these people have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, and they're coming back and saying like, this is not a good drawing or not a good book, and they don't know what they're saying because they don't actually have any background in this. Half these people didn't even work in a comic book field until like 2 years ago when Scholastic was like, we need a comic book imprint. Like,
and even those who do work in the field get stuck in these ideas of what it should and should not be, and how do you innovate in that model? You know, like they're just putting what they, you know, the way they've always seen it done down as gospel.
Yep.
Right.
But
which is industry's full of know-it-alls, and they're usually operating from a point of fear, not any kind of like knowledge that they could base it on. It's really risk aversion that's driving their every fucking thought. And I don't want to be the guy who champions this thing that everyone else is like, about. So everyone's just a pussy by default. Yep. It's not even an insult. It's just, again, the system, like Brazil,
that's the human condition,
forces you to be that way. And then they start coming up with excuses to say no, because you can't just say, I'm scared of it, to be honest. I'm scared to try and take this out or put money behind it because I'm scared I won't get a return on my investment. They got to start giving these bullshit excuses that sound detrimental to your work. You know what I'm saying? They can't say it's great, but I'm scared. It's like, no, it's to this, it's to that. Fuck off.
You hear that so many times, and they're from people in quote unquote positions of power. And I feel like you start to think, wait, am I shit at this? When you know that you're not.
Right, exactly.
You know that you're not, but everyone keeps saying, well, it's not for me, it's not for me. It's just like, you start to question yourself, and you shouldn't, because you told your story the way you wanted to tell it. It's not wrong. It can't be wrong.
Exactly.
I always like that the decision makers were called creative execs, and they're nothing creative about them.
Totally. The only thing creative is them coming up with the way to tell you no when it's really based on fear or whatever. But even then, they just have a bandolier with like these 6 stupid stock answers. It's to this, to that, whatever, you know. So fucking annoying. I hate it. And we made this film, Cactus Jack, as like a total fuck you to everything about Hollywood, storytelling, audiences, everybody, essentially. But then you run into the problem where we think it's great because we know the intention behind every shot and everything, you know what I mean? So we know the mojo that it's working with. But to your point, Jenna, you could say, I'm going to make it my own way. It's great. I know it's great. But then when you put it out there in the wilderness too, the audiences don't find it. Like, when you do niche shit, it's so hard to find those people who are scattered around the globe and let them know that it exists and shit, you know? And
especially now, it's on the one hand, it's great that, you know, the technology and everything is more democratized access to the audience, you know, through the internet, you know, the tools to do all these things. You don't need as much of a committee, but for that same reason, it's also way oversaturated. So it's a needle in a haystack, you know?
But it's not... It's oversaturated to a degree, but I think this is where we all get like and freaked out about algorithms. But I think they can work in our favor. The way targeted marketing works is like, can we get the algorithms to work for creatives to take Evermore Falls right to the people who would dig Evermore Falls, you know?
Yeah, like people bemoan, you know, your information being sold, but in the end, it's really just being used to market to you the things that you're interested in. So I get ads for guitars and not cosmetics or whatever it is, you know what I mean? I'm okay with that. So same thing with this, like the type of content that I'd want to consume, it's more likely to, you know, the YouTube it, but you have to just be conscious of it. You can't let it railroad you if you're...
The problem is it's still all driven by money. Because Evermore Falls isn't going to make Facebook enough money to give a shit about directing people there with their algorithm. It's all
that's how their advertising works, though. So if you're willing to put some money into the Facebook advertising, for example, it gives you all the dials to say, I want to choose these particular types of people.
Kickstarter, you were funded in what, 4 days?
Yeah,
and it's still going, right?
Yeah, we got another whole week left.
How much are you beyond the money you were asking for? What'd you want? 20 grand?
Lordy, no. I asked for a modest 6.
Oh.
Just to cover like a small print run.
What are you guys at now as far as what you've taken in?
9.
90.
Yeah, man, you might want to run some Facebook ads or some shit with that. I mean, Anytime I watch an episode of Shark Tank, that's what the people who have a lot of sales are doing, is they're doing direct marketing through Facebook and Instagram and shit. Instagram might be better than Facebook because it's so visual or whatever, but
that's true.
I will say the benefit of doing everything on my own has kind of shown me where the audience is. And I was very like targeted in the people that I reached out to, like as far as promotion is concerned, like because comics, while a niche marketplace, a lot of the people looking for stuff that I do, they're not going to be like in the Marvel DC arenas.
Right.
They're not going to like these little other companies that do like pink flowery books. So I was very very aware of like, oh, I'll go on that podcast because I know that they're into like dope art, or I'll go and interview with these people because they're into independent alternative shit. And it saves everyone time and energy. And,
yeah, you can find those little corners, I guess, the internet where the people congregate who are like-minded, but
and like the people that are your ride or dies, they'll stick with you no matter what you're doing. And I feel like word of mouth has been a great asset for me. And even on top of that, just being upfront and honest about what the project is, and like the process behind it. Like more people have been enjoying hearing me talk about like just how ridiculously ass backwards publishing is. And they'll be like, yeah, I'll support that book because fuck them. Like, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's kind of where we all come from, that whole need to own what we do, to control what we do, to just make dope shit and not have to answer to anyone for it.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what was great about doing the Kickstarter. I'm like, listen, I should have been doing this years ago, and I could have probably had a bigger fucking fan base by then.
You know, your brilliance is though, doing a Kickstarter with a finished product. Like we hit Indiegogo and got a few with a film. You kind of got to get props. You got to cost more. Like the beauty of what you do is you need your art supplies, but that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the thing that a lot of, especially with comic Kickstarters, where they go wrong is they offer a bunch of like nonsense rewards. Like,
super small.
Like, I'm funding a comic book. I don't want a pin or a poster.
Right. Yeah, and it burdens you with having to fulfill all this shit too. You know, it's like that's a nightmare in and of itself.
Yeah, between that though and like not having a book done, what's the point? You're going to be waiting for that thing for like another year.
If you ever even get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, it took us 4 years to make Cactus Jack. There were people, I'm sure, who were like, these losers aren't making their movie. We gave money for nothing, you know, and eventually we finished it. But shit, I think there's probably some rewards we haven't delivered on. It's like, dude,
nobody needs to know.
Fuck it, I don't care. I admit, hey, if you think you're owed a reward and you see this, hit us up and I'll try and fulfill it for you. But if you don't care, I don't care. I mean,
I don't even remember what we put on there. It's been so long.
I think it was maybe like a couple signed scripts, but then we ended up making the movie without a script.
Right.
So it's like, what the fuck? I'm gonna, I guess, go back and transcribe it and sign it. I don't know.
This film in particular, though, we did approach with no like time limit. That was part of the point, was to say that we'll shoot it in a location we can control with the accessible actors and stuff. You know, that so maybe not 4 years, but we definitely left it open ended as far as just being able to be agile and shoot at our own pace.
Part of that was the system
without a
sucking us
script
in too, because we had a couple TV things
we
pop off during that, so we'd go away from it for like a year, even at a time sometimes. But point being, what you're doing, you are lucky because you're so fucking talented and you do have that distinct art style. I kind of feel for guys who want to do what you do but don't got that mojo, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's when I was referring to the oversaturation of film and everything, pretty much. Music, what is it, 60-something thousand new songs uploaded a day? You know, it's just like
crazy.
Yeah, just by definition, the vast majority is just never going to, you know, I mean, but again, what's the point of art too? You know, like if you're just doing it because you enjoy it, just making the music or drawing or whatever, that's great on its own. It doesn't necessarily have to be a career either. You know, it's great if you can make it one, but
well, the problem is like if we had universal basic income or some shit, three guys can get an apartment together and just make comic
do what the
books
fuck
all
you
day
want.
and shit. You know what I'm saying? Because they got $3,000 a month. But the way we live now, it's like we got to work these shit jobs we hate to make our art, and then eventually you can't help but dream of making the art your job. So then you get sucked into that whole side of it, you know. And you start making all these compromises on it and shit. But I don't know, Jenna, you've had a film made, right?
Oh yeah. Yes,
how'd that go?
That was quite a learning experience.
Do you want to tell people what it is and where they can get it or anything? Or?
The film, we wrote it as a script called The Sound, and it eventually ended up being a film called Ambition. And it was in theaters for a short period of time in the fall of 2019. And then Shout Factory put it out on Blu-ray. Yeah.
Good curators.
Yeah. It was a long process. We wrote the first draft of that script in January of 2010.
And so that's not, when you say we, you don't mean you and Karl, because did you know him in 2010 even?
No, I didn't. So I have a writing partner. His name is John. And I've known him for, God, almost like 20 years. And so we wrote the script together. We were like, it's going to be a nice little contained thriller. It's going to be set in the Northeast. It's going to be set during winter. And the film is filmed in Baton Rouge during a rainstorm. And it went through so many drafts, and we developed. And then it eventually filmed in spring of 2016. And then it took that long to come out in 2019. Yeah.
I mean, it's like these aren't children as much as people like to say, like you can't pick between your favorites or whatever.
Yeah.
But these aren't children. You can almost just lose touch with it. You're like, oh yeah, remember that movie? By the time it comes out, you're even like, oh yeah.
There were definitely long stretches where I was like, what's happening with the sound? And John would be like, I don't know. We should hit up our manager and figure it out. Like, you just once you option it, once it goes to a place, it's kind of, unless you're doing a rewrite on it, it's out of your hands. So it was a long process. Yeah.
Do you write prose at all? Because again, we keep coming back to that. We're like, set it in fucking New England during a snowstorm. Yeah. In prose.
Imagination's the limit.
You want. Yeah.
100%. So I wrote a script, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, called Hellion. And it didn't sell because it was kind of a dark fantasy-ish type world, not based on IP. It was an original idea. And I got a lot of feedback that said, hey, we like this, but we can't sell it unless it's based on IP. But I liked the world so much that I was like, well, F you guys. Nice. I turned the script into a novel, and then I was like, well, I can write a prologue. So I wrote a prequel, and then I wrote 2 more novels in the world, and now I have to write the 4th and final novel. And like, am I the greatest prose writer? No, I'm used to writing scripts, so my stuff is really like kind of concise and short, and I don't get flowery.
And so is Hemingway.
Exactly.
He did all right.
Yeah, he was all right. But I love the world so much that whether anyone bought the book or not, I was going to write them. And I threw them up on Amazon. I self-published, and I love writing them. I love that world. And even if nobody ever buys the script, I don't care.
That's how we feel. And we fall in that same trap again, but it's almost because of that attitude, for us, at least, self-fulfilling, that people might love it. But again, that audience, we don't do shit to market. We are awful marketers. So, and that is
I'm not a Twitterer or any of that.
No, I hate all that shit.
Even then on Twitter, like, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah,
like,
no one cares.
I tried to market a little bit, but there are people out there who are churning out books and content so fast that unless you jump in and spend a fairly hefty sum promoting your book, you are going to get spit up and chewed out by the algorithm within days. You're just not even make a dent. So
the almighty algorithm.
Yeah, it's like, what do you fucking do? Because Chris and I talk all the time about, and I think both of you will dig this and have probably thought about it yourselves, the advent of a creative middle class. Can we make 40 grand a year making dope shit like this? Does it have to be rags or riches, And again, it's just finding that loyal audience and, I guess, churning out, being prolific enough to keep them engaged and remembering that you exist as this tidal wave of shit is coming at them at all times. But easier said than done, man, especially when you got to have day jobs. And I mean, the pandemic hit. I got a kid who was homeschooled. He was home on virtual schooling for the whole year. So I'm like, I can't get shit done unless I sleep 2 hours a night,
Those people cranking out books, like a book every 6 weeks or a book every month. It's like, I'm sure they're making a living, but like, when do you burn out? Like, when do you run out of shit to say? And you were talking about universal basic income. Like, would it be the worst thing in the world if people just didn't have to worry about feeding their family?
Your basic needs,
what they love?
Preach.
Right.
I mean,
no brainer, really, especially with automation and everything, you know, becoming more prominent.
Everyone consumes entertainment.
Right, exactly. They may even consume more in the scenario. Right?
Consumers for Christ.
Yes.
That's from
what
Brazil.
do you want for Christmas, little girl? A credit card.
Yes, exactly. In Brazil, this little girl wants a credit card. 1985 or whatever, he was nailing this shit.
Yes. Profit.
It's like you want to act like writing isn't as valid a job as like being an accountant, but okay, so stop reading books and stop watching television.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a harder
and the computers
thing to
doing the
quantify. You know what I mean? It's harder to say you're doing the work or not. We talk all the time. I just wrote some article for Pipeline Artist or whatever that site they have about the power of thoughtful procrastination. And that old Billy Wilder story where Jack Warner burst into the bungalow and was like, "What the fuck are you doing? I'm paying you 10 grand a week to write," or whatever. And Wilder was laying there with a newspaper over his face, sleeping basically in the sunlight. And he says, "I am writing. I'll be typing later." It's like our work doesn't look like work a lot of the times. You know what I mean? So it's hard.
Every day Stephen King goes for a long walk, and I'm sure that's where a lot of his writing is done, just in his head as he's thinking about the next thing he's going to knock out or whatever.
So it's very easy for people to think you look like a loafer or whatever, and you're just creating art. And it's very easy, of course, especially with this deluge of shit, to say, who cares? Does the world need your story or whatever? Maybe not, but I don't know.
I know a lot of it's compulsive too. You just compulsively want to create, or you know, at least I have that, where it's not even so much about an audience half the time for me. It's more just that I just am compelled to. That's it. You know,
like Carl, you're just making the comic book you want to read that doesn't exist, right?
Right. Yeah.
Always.
There's that too. Yeah.
That's always what I'm doing because I hate the current state of the industry.
You've said multiple times you wanted to make a comic book that would be a kid's favorite first comic, like we would get them into comics.
Nice.
Yeah, every book that I get into, I go with the mindset of the only limitation I have is my ability and my imagination, because that blank page wasn't put in front of me to draw two people in a room talking.
Right.
That's fucking boring.
I mean, I love My Dinner with Andre and shit.
Yeah.
I love Richard Linklater movies, Before Sunrise, but
I'm telling you right now, man.
But for a comic book medium, it's
every comic book I pick up is like that. And it's so discouraging because I'm like you guys. I grew up on the Toddy Mac. Like, that shit's exciting.
Yes. Do you remember when he first hit?
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit. We were in the Philippines. It was the 80s. We were living there as military. It was
revolutionary.
Brats. And that was one of the major things, was waiting for the AFI's bookstore to get the new comics in and shit. Yep. And I remember, like, I went and looked and saw, it was that episode Amazing Spider-Man issue 298 with that guy Chance, right? And I was just like, what the fuck? When I looked at the
I love that it was just this random ass issue too.
Yes.
Yes.
Because, and again, over there, that's all we had access to, of course, was Marvel and DC. You know, the mainstreams. You're not going to be getting
for sure.
Fucking
have you guys ever seen
the
documentary?
Which documentary?
The one about Image, the founding of Image.
No, I gotta check that out.
Image Revolution.
Yeah, it's
in the beginning, it's just Toddy Mac, and he's up there, and he's like, you know, you want to be successful, you want to make your. He goes, you're not happy with the way things are going. Stop working for fucking Marvel.
Yes.
Nice.
But again, it's like Carl saying that too. It's like, you got the talent, dude. It's like a lot of guys. Is it Eric Larson who preceded or followed Todd McFarlane and started stealing his web style and all that shit? I'm sure at the behest of the bosses. Is he going to go start an Image Comics? No.
You guys
Todd
like
McFarlane.
Yeah, for sure. It's I throw that on like once a month just to get fired up.
Nice. Yeah, that kind of stuff is inspiring.
Those guys that like Marvel and DC look the way they do now, though, because they don't want the artist to kind of overscale. Yeah, they can't be bigger than the brand, essentially.
The full corporate now. Yeah.
Same with it's like the studio system, essentially, like, or just even how they do the same thing. Yeah, it's like we can't let the directors, or one of the reasons I think writers aren't propped up in Hollywood more. I mean, writers should be on a pedestal. In every interview a decent actor gives, says it all starts with a script and everything. Yet they don't want to give writers the power, so they're not going to fucking, you know, you get, you know, second billing, I guess, behind the director, kind of, with credits. But it's like all the producers are up there first.
The other day,
is it the one about the writers and directors?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very bizarre that the writers in comics are treated like the directors in film.
Right.
Like in comics, the writer is the creator and the artist is just the person they hired.
Which is hilarious.
the comic.
And then in film, the director is a big deal, and the person who actually conceived of it and wrote all the dialogue and all that. It's just like most people don't know their names.
Capitalism again. We look at these lords of capital and shit. It's like, no, always look at whoever is being shit on. That's the most essential cog in the machine. You know,
the slaughterhouse worker.
Because no one wants to give them the power. They have it all. They just have no leverage. And that's what it always comes down to, leverage. You got very little in any of these industries, you know. And when you are holding the hammer, they want to give you as little leverage as possible because you can wield that power. You know,
exactly.
So even like how writer is king in TV, they say, it's like, no, it's not. The fucking executives are king. The writer doesn't get last say on shit. You know. It's always whoever has the money. I'm gonna go on some capital screed.
You want to talk about Halloween at all? Why is your favorite movie?
Oh, it's my favorite movie because it took me a while to see it. Like, I didn't see it until I was maybe 16. And my dad was super influential in terms of me growing up to be a spooky kid, because when I was little, like far too young to be reading this stuff, the stuff on his shelves was Stephen King, like Edgar Allan Poe, and like Dean.
Same with us.
Yep, that's how we grew up. Dean Koontz. Our mom read all that shit.
Yeah.
So like I'm sitting there at like whatever it was, 10 years old, just devouring Jurassic Park. And he, one day, I remember specifically like watching TV on a Saturday, and he's like, "Have you not seen Halloween yet?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, what, is it good?" And he's like, "Okay, we're putting on Halloween." And he did. And I didn't know it at the time because I didn't want to be a writer yet. Like, I wasn't somebody who came to this early. I came to it quite late. But I watched it and I was like, I'm terrified, and I don't know why, but I know it's because of John Carpenter. Like, and he, going forward, like, then I discovered The Fog, then I discovered The Thing, like all of this stuff. And I think that what I really love about Halloween is its simplicity, like in its story, and especially in its direction. Like, he just
the execution,
like, around on a wheelchair, but like, he's also just locking the camera off and letting the scene play out. And I find that like so much of what happens nowadays is either quick cuts or shaky cam,
max coverage,
no building of tension. Like harkening back to say,
who are we talking about that with? We were talking, I think it was James McTeague, actually, you know, the V for Vendetta director. We had him on, and we were talking about how filmmakers back in the day, possibly because of the medium of film versus digital, I mean, when you think about Spielberg, it's such a pure cinema thing where he knows where to place the camera. So it starts framed with an amazing frame, but then it moves to reveal information and increase tension or whatever, and lands again on a perfectly framed frame. You know, that art,
knowing where you want it to land.
It's all cuts. It's all, and you don't need tracking shots like Scorsese and out of touch or whatever. You can do it simply by moving the camera and what's in frame, you know. But man,
I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark last night, and I just kept going, movies don't look like this anymore.
No, and they should. It's so easy.
Yeah. I go in the beginning, I go, watch, it's all blocking, and he just follows and lets them act.
Exactly.
You cast it well, and you can just sit this on some sticks and just let it go. Like,
the longer the cut is as well, and Tarantino will do this, you know, it's you're letting your actors act, like you said, together, and that just sucks you in. So like, I'm there,
you feel like you're in the room,
people, you know, versus all these cuts, you know, it's 15 different takes stitched together and shit, like.
And it's not flashy. It's like the scenes that they let play out, or like the one-ers that they're doing, they're not announcing themselves as the director. You're just so sucked into the story. It's very simple movement. And like, I was rewatching The Fog the other day, and it's just the way he just lets a scene, like the guy who's mopping up in the store and the bottles start to shake in the glass cases. You know what I'm talking about? It's just like very simple. Just one guy just following him while he mops, and it's just like, it's creepy as hell. Or somebody with a hook hand knocking on your door. And I feel like we've lost a lot of, like, it's all trickery now, and it's all quick cuts. It's all it's never just
it never feels motivated. It feels like it's homage and rip off, and just this is how you shoot. But there's no, it's like the way movies came to be shot is because the original pioneers thought of ways to motivate a shot. Like Hitchcock, we did an exercise in film school. I remember I was a dropout, but still I went for a while, where we were doing an editing exercise and it was clap on every cut. And then you hit the shower scene and it's like boom, 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 because he's trying to motivate you to feel as if you're getting stabbed up by this knife that keeps coming at you. Yeah. That's why you're cutting so much. Not because it looks cool or because, you know, you can't make up your mind. That's what a lot of it feels
specifically like. Horror too. You know, that during that whole era, 60s, 70s into like the early 80s horror, like it takes its time. Like I said, if you feel like you're in the room, which is so much more horrific than like most modern horror stuff doesn't do anything for me. It's just too
every cut reminds you you're watching a movie.
That stuff, like you thought you were like going to get that like fucking Leatherface chainsaw is like right there next to you, you know, or whatever. The fucking Exorcist and stuff like that, man, that pulls you way more in.
We just ended up watching. So speaking of like, it's never done like this anymore. Like you can put all the ghosts and things or murderers on screen that you want, and I'm never going to be as scared as when a director does a slow pan that's going to reveal something that's going to terrify me, right? Because you just have to look at the corners of the screen, and that's what I love. Is like when he frames stuff, Carpenter, it's always in the far corner. You have to search for it.
And like windows in the background and stuff. You just like you feel so vulnerable, and
it feels like a bit of a renaissance for that with the Eggers and
he's
Ari Aster, or however you say his name, Aster maybe, I don't know. And Ty West, House of the Devil. That's a pretty good modern one that's directed very old school.
Has that feel for sure.
The one I just saw that I became obsessed with is The Dark and the Wicked.
Oh shit, yeah, The Dark and the Wicked is great.
I haven't seen
it. I don't know that.
One by Brian Bertino, who did The Strangers. Okay. And The Strangers, I mean, wasn't necessarily for me, but I think he's a good director. But this movie is just straight up old school.
Cool.
Holding on shots, things in the corners, slow pans, letting actors do their job.
There's some genuine scares.
And it is like 90 minutes of tension that I felt like my adrenals were burned out by the end of it. And he didn't, there was nothing flashy about it at all.
Yeah.
Love it.
I didn't like it for that reason. I was just like, okay, now I'm
it is funny as we were sitting there talking about the pacing of it. And I will say, I saw Halloween.
Brazil is the stark opposite.
In that sense. Brazil and Terry Gilliam is the opposite.
They're a great double feature.
But again, it's about being motivated. There's intention behind every fucking shot. That was one of the greatest compliments we had. You know, Mark Metcalf, the dude who was Niedermeyer in Animal House and shit. He came on our podcast too. He's a big fan of Cactus Jack, actually. And that was one of the things he said is I could see this intention behind every shot. And we're like, thank you, dude. Like that's the greatest compliment you could pay. And Terry Gilliam absolutely deserves that compliment. You know, it's not a music video where it's just throwing a bunch of shots together. And when he uses Dutch angles and shit, it's to invoke a feeling in you, not because he thinks it looks cool.
Every shot is a Dutch angle.
It is. It is. But again,
it's funny actually.
So motivated.
Metcalf, that guest, his favorite movie was Les Enfants du Paradis, and when I was researching it, there was a clip of Terry Gilliam. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was his favorite movie, but it was definitely
one of them. Criterion shit,
singing its praises. Yeah. So it seems to have been really influential on his work.
I appreciate that you didn't call it City of Lost Children.
Or Children of Paradise.
Film people.
Children of Paradise.
Yeah.
Well, hey, what do you think of City of Lost Children?
I fucking love it.
Yeah, I was going to say that's right in that milieu, you know?
Yeah, it is.
I don't like the transfer on the latest Blu-ray because it's not as brown as the original. And there was something that looks really antique about that original master.
Absolutely. Very brass, kind of tarnished.
I really don't. I've gotten really nerdy about that. I recently saw the Batman Returns 4K restoration, and it's really blue and it works really well.
So good.
But they did the same thing with the first Batman 89, and I was like, fuck this, it's too clean.
It depends on the piece, you know, whatever.
Depends how it was lit. I mean, Tim Burton's old school. He's kind of what we're talking about, you know?
Yeah.
But I've turned into a real geek about that kind of stuff. I had no idea that it would impact my viewing pleasure until I started seeing movies I've grown up with getting remastered and looking like total dog shit.
You know what's funny, man? We're so into lo-fi nowadays as this fuck Hollywood mentality. We can find ourselves fucking fashioning.
you guys seen Joe Bagos's recent movie, Bliss?
No.
Oh.
Dude, we're so out of touch. Part of the reason we started this podcast was to start watching movies again, but we made the mistake of saying, what's your favorite movie? Instead of what's the new hot shit you advise watching, because we're still just rewatching classics and shit. You know?
Maybe we should change that. Yeah. What's your favorite movie this year?
I'm like that old guy who's just stuck in listening to the Doors and shit at this point.
That's okay. Right. I'm good with that too.
If you haven't seen it yet, then definitely check it out. It's called Bliss. And Joe Bagos, the director, he basically had one of those fuck it moments too, where he was just like, I was sick of my management and I was sick of not being able to do my own shit. And he shot it on what, 16 millimeter?
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's really grainy.
And it's LA.
Yeah, it's like grimy LA though. Like,
I love it. I'm all about that shit. So to your point though, the 4K restorations and everything, I find myself saying, I kind of grew up loving movies on VHS and DVD.
Same.
Why do I need this 4K shit now? Right. I don't want VHS. I don't want fucking bad quality. But I found myself buying DVDs on eBay for $2, and I'm like,
I had to do that with the Warriors because I hate that director's cut that they put out a couple years back.
Yeah, like leave it alone at some point. What did we watch? Oh, Blade Runner. We were joking about with Zoya Stage. I always fuck her name up. She came on too, and we're just talking about the number of cuts that were released even in theaters. There's like so many cuts of Blade Runner. It's crazy. But
I own all of them.
Yeah.
Nice.
You talk about that shit for days too. What comics? Turn us on to decent comics to read, because you talked about all these shitty ones. We're so out of touch. We're stuck in like 90s Marvel shit is about when we stopped really with comics. So
it's kind of funny because that's all that I've been reading lately. I'm not a huge advocate for newer shit because it's the 4K restoration of it.
But are there no like David Eggers out there of comics? Like who's
diamonds in the rough?
Other than you.
Go first because I'll come up with a list, I'm sure.
What I've been doing, because I've been trying to get a comics education, is I've been buying a ton of like issue 1s that'll come out of new stuff to just be like, okay, how do you execute this? And I very rarely buy issue 2s.
I'm like that with pilots on TV. You know, I've got a huge collection of pilots. Never seen the second episode.
Chris is basically the upfronts for TV. Pass.
But unfortunately, though, I do find that a lot of shows you have to get past the pilot to really enjoy. Even like The Sopranos, you know, it really hit a stride like in 4th season or something. So.
Yeah.
Still though, it's
that
like
might be
comic
true for these
with the art
too.
and shit. It's like, how was it shot? How was it? You know what I mean? It's what's the tone really?
Yeah.
With comics, a lot of times, since you guys are writers, you would be able to pick up immediately, you know, within the first few pages of the script, whether or not something's going to be good.
There's promise.
Whether or not these guys can pull off dialogue or whatever.
Yeah.
The one comic that I actually put on a pull list and made sure I got every week that it came out was Cy Spurrier's run on Constantine, the Hellblazer. Because that's already up my wheelhouse, like with the whole magic and stuff. But like, he is such a good writer, and the artists he got on the project were incredible. It was Matthias Bergara and Aaron, what's his last name, Johnson?
I think so.
Either way, the art's incredible, and the story, like his dialogue and his writing is just like chef's kiss.
That was the best iteration of the character.
And it was 12 issues, and then DC canceled it. So
typical.
You were also digging that Joe Hill book too.
Oh yeah. So Joe Hill is
Joe Hill's a name that sounds familiar.
Stephen King's son, right?
Yeah.
He took a pseudonym.
Right.
He did,
pulled a Richard Bachman, so he wouldn't get fame just off the name. Yeah.
He has an imprint now with DC, right, called Hill House.
Yeah.
Nice.
And he did a book called Plunge, which is like deep sea horror and like body horror.
Nice. Love it. That's up my alley, man. And it's rarely done well. That's the thing. Yeah. So I look forward to checking that out.
Yeah, it's got references to The Thing, and like I think the main captain's name is Carpenter, but it's great.
Okay, all the homages. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. Plunge with Joe Hill was really good.
Okay.
Stuart Eminem.
Yeah, Stuart Eminem.
And
he came to retirement for that.
Yeah.
So that speaks to that.
Nice.
As for me, I haven't really been digging on a lot of stuff lately. I've been picking up a book called Ultra Mega by James Herron. I usually focus on shit that's written and drawn by the same guy.
That's cool. Like sort of auteur of the comics world.
So few people in the industry that are allowed to do that.
Those are my favorite movies. Are usually written and directed, but you know.
And it's really, really good. It's his first time writing, and it shows a little bit. But I mean, his art's so good
And it's about giant kaiju.
Yeah, it's a kaiju monster body horror story.
Let me throw this out, talking about the artists and being an auteur in comics, essentially. I kind of feel like I fell off in the 90s as Image was created because Marvel now took a step back big without fucking McFarlane and Jesus Christ. Who started? Jim Lee and there was a third, wasn't there? Or was it just the two of them? I thought there was a third creator who went to Image. It was just the two of them there.
Yeah, Silvestri was one of them.
Yes, Alan Silvestri.
Valentino, yeah.
All right, well, but to the auteurs, though, I think when I went to read Spawn in, what was the shit, Wildcats or something?
Yeah.
That's what Jim Lee made, right?
That was a Jim Lee one.
Yeah. I felt like,
totally forgot.
I kind of want to see them packaged, though, with that great writer. Like maybe Jim Lee Strong is in writing.
Yeah.
So to me, Marvel now sucked and Image wasn't as good as it could be.
Right.
Because it was artists wanting to write, but
yeah. Oh, that's one of the biggest things that people talk shit about with those early Image books. And that's how Todd McFarlane shut that down. He was like, oh, you don't like the writing? Okay, well, I'm going to get Alan Moore. I'm going to get Neil Gaiman.
Exactly. That's what it's like. See, I don't think I stuck around long enough to hit that stage. That's the problem.
Yeah. I love the Sandman stuff and Watchmen. I mean, they're like top shelf to me, you know. But
those are those books that you can give to anyone. You're like, no, comics can be this, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, like
has anyone ever seen Alan Moore draw? Like, what is? I kind of want to see something he would draw.
I might prefer that over the Dave Gibbons one, just because it is him, just to see what he like. Even if it's like stick figures, all crazy.
Yeah. They printed
no offense to Gibbons, but
Watchmen that actually has like his thumbnails and like breakdowns and whatever.
Interesting.
It's fascinating looking at the process.
Dude, I gotta get that.
Like Del Toro's book with all.
What do you think of Zack Snyder in comics?
Well, he hasn't written one yet, but he's
what do you think of his comic adaptations in Hollywood?
We don't mind Zack Snyder.
I'm not gonna hate on him. I'm not gonna hate on him.
Cool.
It's too trendy to fucking hate someone who's doing that shit.
I will say this:
that shouldn't stop you either. If you know what I mean, there shouldn't be a reason not to if you do. That's all I'm saying. Not that I'm saying you should, but go ahead.
I'm not a Zack Snyder hater either. His Watchmen, it's unless you make a limited series or something. To put that shit into a movie, I mean, it's so rich, and the Black Frigate and all that shit, or Freighter, whatever it's called. Like you lose all that in the movie, but that's what happens when you adapt to a movie that has this time constraint. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You have that ultimate cut that's got the animated Black Freighter put throughout the movie.
Oh shit!
Oh really? Okay, I haven't seen.
Does that exist?
Yeah.
Damn.
It's got like the ultimate director's cut, and then they cut in all the Black Freighter stuff that was animated for it.
So Snyder's problem is the studio system, apparently, because like with Justice League, it was the same thing, right? You know, man, there you go, repeating the theme over and over.
Sucker Punch is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, though. Sorry, girl power and everything. That was a bad metaphor for girl power to me.
It's I don't know.
Didn't he do a Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I don't think that was too much of
like visuals.
Yeah,
the Sucker Punch
looks good.
That shit looks good.
But there's no story whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He might be like one of those visual artists.
Sensibility again of it. Yeah, exactly. He would need someone to write for him. This is point. Like if we wrote a Zack Snyder movie, it'd be come on, it'd be amazing.
Call us Zach.
Exactly.
So would this be your desert island movie, Brazil, if you were stuck forever with one movie to watch and nothing else?
Man, yeah, probably. There's very few movies I put on in the background and am watching, because like I'll throw stuff on mercilessly while I'm working, but Brazil's one of those movies that even if I'm not in the mood for it, I'll end up watching it, and I just dig it. It's so uninhibited with its disgust for how things are done. Like it hates process more than anything, and even when you're not getting that from the movie, you kind of get that from the movie. And there's like,
and it's constantly popping. Just there's always something going on. Yeah,
like it has whole aspects of that film have nothing to do with how the film starts out, and you just get something new.
Did you see Ebert gave it 1 star?
Oh yeah,
no shit. I did
Ebert
not know that,
it, dude. He hated most Gilliam movies. He gave Fisher King 1 star, I think.
Which I think is bizarre because that's the most accessible thing he's ever made.
Exactly. I know I kind of feel bad sometimes that it's my favorite, but it's not my favorite of. It's not that it's like. I don't know. It's just hard to say. It's those 2 characters, honestly. It's the characters.
Yeah.
Like Gravanese or whatever the script he wrote, you know. Mercedes Rolls character. Come on. Fucking amazing. and just the Howard Stern of it all, the absurdity that smacks throughout that as well, with the excuse me sitcom shit and everything. Like, I knew I was going to love both of you, and Karl, just through your art, I knew I was going to love you. But the fact that that's what you love about Brazil, just that it hates on all this shit, that turns me on even more.
It's just funny too, because it's not caustic about it.
Right.
It's just, don't you guys realize